Hey, well, welcome into Day by Day. I'm James, and I'm with Andrew.
Hello,
Andrew,
everybody.
my goodness, we have a lot to talk about.
We still have a football team, or at least half of one. So
We have a football team. I actually had somebody sent me a message right before we did this. They knew we were recording a podcast, and they said, you guys should just talk Nebraska basketball and pretend everything's normal.
Yeah.
It's like, we're 6-1. We play Michigan State on Saturday. That's like, it's our comfy slippers at this point.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that Nebraska basketball is what's giving us an anchor to hold on to?
Man, however, I think for a lot of fans, unfortunately, some of those comfy slippers can be off-season controversy with the football team.
It's true.
That's why
very true.
After the Iowa loss, I told my wife, I was like, I'm so tired of being excited to see what happens or to see what comes out of everything at the end of the year. Like,
yep.
Yeah. Last offseason was a little boring, so I guess we're due for it. But
I want to win on the field.
Yep.
All right. Well, we'll get into all that, but first, please subscribe to the show. Helps more people find us. Comment, share, like. Of course, we are a part of the characterchronicles.com network of podcasts exclusive to characterchronicles.com. You can find us on YouTube, which is probably where you're watching this, but also Apple, Spotify, other podcast platforms. So thanks for listening to the show. So let's get into it here. We got a lot to cover. It's been an eventful week. It is only Tuesday. It's not Wednesday. We are going to get to Tony White, Dana Holgorsen, the roster trimming, transfer portal. But first and foremost, Andrew, I have to say a huge thank you, shout out to our neighbors, my neighbors to the direct east, yours to the very far east. We had a ton of Iowa fans watch our last episode, our reaction episode. Not our most watched episode by any means. That was after the UCLA game. But you Iowa fans, I think single-handedly bumped us up a little bit in the YouTube rankings with your comments. So thank you for that, Iowa fans. We appreciate the clicks. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show and that you listen again. And I hope you listen before next year on Black Friday.
Yeah.
So
just tune in after we beat you next year, please.
Yes. Just wanted to get that out of the way. All right. Well, here we go. We have some emotional reaction, maybe some logical reaction, maybe some overreaction. Let's start with the big news of the week, which is Tony White leaving Nebraska to take what I think is the same job at a similar school at Florida State. I think it's a lateral move. I know people have been debating that, but let's start there. I want to know your reaction. We've only exchanged tweets, which are texts, which our texts were kind of like, what the heck?
Yep.
So what are your thoughts? What's kind of your emotional raw response to that initially?
Yeah. At first I was shocked, and I think it was more the move that he's making, and it's his move to make as I've like come down, like whatever his reasons are, like good for him. I think at first, yeah, it was like, you're doing this for another coordinator job. Because rooting for the guy, like we kind of knew we were going to lose him. So that wasn't really the shock. I think for me, it's more shocking now, the aftermath. But happy for him. But a little bit puzzled, like this isn't, unless it's a door in to become the head coach there or something, which is a weird, awkward situation. Personally, just was rooting for the guy to become a head coach and to leave here to go do that. So it kind of feels like it cheapens his time here a little bit, because he's now going to go be the same guy somewhere else. And so you feel a little, I don't know, a little hurt by that, a little jaded, but just don't take Terrence. That's my big thing. Once I saw that, then it stung a little bit more. And honestly, I've forgotten about Tony White, because I'm excited about whatever Rule does with the coordinator. It's more now, don't take assistants and players. So
Yeah, that's the hard part for me. I really like Tony White. I think Nebraska's defense has been good. I do have some notes on, and I know people will probably shred me for this, that I want to get to, and I'm open to being shredded. But I'm like, that's the thing for me is the position coaches to me matter a whole lot. And I think Nebraska's defensive position coaches have been really good. Now there's some clues that Terrence Knighton might be leaving because there's been a whole lot of, front seven, even some, quote unquote linemen. They're kind of like, outside linebackers who are entering the transfer portal, Jamari Butler, James Williams. I think there's probably been some others. Prince Will. So, that shows me that maybe he's not sticking around, but I listened to Damon Benning talk today, and, he said, Terrence Knighton and Matt Rule are close. Matt Rule's known him since he was 17 years old. Whatever Knighton does, like, they're going to be on the same page, and, it's going to be the best for both of them. So while that would stink, I think, as a fan, and it's that thing, like, we think about this as fans, but it's like, these are, this is their lives. And if he wants to make that move, great. Maybe he wants to be in Florida. Maybe that's what Tony White wanted. Like, he's got a wife and kids. Like, maybe they're like, we hate Lincoln. Okay, great.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't like Lincoln if I wasn't from here either. I get that. So it's hard to know, but we'll never know, right? Like, they'll never say the real reason. You just don't, with coaches, you don't know. They'll just say, well, I wanted a new opportunity. Okay. That's not what this was about. Yeah. Now I do want to ask you, so let's kind of get into the weeds a little bit. I've been talking to some people throughout the day about this, and I like, if John Butler was going to be the new defensive coordinator, don't you think it would have been announced already?
Yeah, prior to signing day. I know. I think recruits probably know something, but I agree.
And I think you would have announced it publicly, maybe even today, because you announced Dana Holgorsen was going to be the offensive coordinator yesterday. So you had a whole 24 hours after Tony White was, it was announced he's going to Florida State. So here's my thought is, if John Butler is going to replace Tony White, I think it would have been announced. But what I saw in the defense this year was that the secondary played really poorly. But I don't know that that's all on John Butler. I think, one, he came in 6 weeks before the season started. You had significant injuries to both Hills, who were probably going to be the starting cornerbacks. But what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing is Butler's vision and Tony White's vision, and even Matt Rule's vision, were drastically different. And maybe there were too many cooks in the kitchen, and Tony White didn't like that.
And then enter Phil Snow.
Yeah, and then enter Phil Snow week 10. There's no way for me to prove any of this, but I could see that being a reason why Tony White's like, yeah, this really isn't for me. And I really want to move on to where I can be, the one, I could be the one cook. Now, here's the thing. Yeah. Nebraska just needs to figure out who it wants to be, and Matt Rule needs to figure out who's the chef of the defense, and just let that guy do all the cooking.
Yep.
Don't meddle, don't try to tinker. Don't do what happened on offense where, we take this piece here, we take this piece here, then we have this huge playbook. Like, be who you are and just be that and do it really well. If it's John Butler, that's fine. If it's Rob Dvorak, fine. If it's Phil Snow, I don't think it'll be Phil Snow. He's 68 years old. I can't see him coordinating a defense again. Maybe he will, but what are your thoughts? I'm curious if you kind of considered that.
Yeah, I think I think Rule. I agree. I don't think it's Phil Snow. The longer this goes, I agree. Butler seems to come into question. Because I just get the sense that Rule, we know Rule has the pulse of Husker Nation. He has, Adam Carricker, but he kind of has his pulse. He knows the pulse of what people want, in a way, I sense that he wants to make a splash hire, that they're going to open up the pocketbook and bring in a Jim Leonard or whoever it is.
That'd be incredible.
I sense that maybe that's what's in the works. Maybe the coordinator's coaching still. Who knows? I mean, it's kind of that whole situation when there's head coach turnover. But
so the coordinator for Oregon did work for Rule in Carolina.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and he's playing this weekend.
Yeah.
So that's, who knows?
Yeah.
That's possible.
Yeah. But I think my guess is he's seen 2 years of the Big Ten. He's obviously realized it's clear that there has to be a major change. Something's broken, systematically or whatever. And he probably had that hard conversation with Tony White that, hey, we're looking at changing our offense. So maybe your defense doesn't necessarily fit what we want to do offensively. Yep. Your defense hasn't proven to be what it needs to be within the Big Ten except for maybe a few games. So,
because that's the thing, Andrew, like, what if Matt Rule was the one that told Tony White, I think you should take the Florida State job?
Yeah.
We're freaking out, except the funny thing is we all knew Tony White was going to leave either this year or next year. It was inevitable. Yeah. And then people start flipping out because it's a lateral move. But what if Matt Rule was the one that said, I'm ready to go in a different direction, and I think you should take a different job?
Yeah. Well, we know that was the conversation last year. We know Rule encouraged him to take head coaching jobs. We know that's been the goal. Like Rule laid that out, that the goal is to get him moving on to be a head coach. And so, yeah, who knows what other things lie within that decision. Maybe proving himself at 2 Power 4, schools.
Yep.
Will get him into that head coaching position. He's not going to be at Florida State long, or not at least defensive coordinator long. So, so I'm fine with that. I think it's all the other stuff. I don't think it left on negative terms. I think both are very professional, respectful guys. Yep. And I would guess Tony White has a lot of appreciation for Rule giving him the chance that he had and sort of the
100%
the freedom to pursue other things. So
100%. Now I want to talk about how good Nebraska's defense really was, because what people think, like, I'm not trying to pile on Tony White, but I think what the assumption is we'll never get anybody as good or Nebraska's defense is really going to struggle because Tony White did miracles here at Nebraska. Now, if you only look in terms of averages across the 12-game season, Nebraska had, I think, the 19th ranked defense. Their scoring defense was pretty good. And I think we would agree, we've talked about it on the podcast, usually the defense has done enough to win games, and they're not the problem. And I'm not saying that right now. I'm not saying Tony White or the defense was the problem, but here's what I do know. Against the best teams, and I can get into the statistics here, but against the best offensive teams, Nebraska's defense struggled mightily. And that even goes back to last season. Now, the one exception was Ohio State this year. I mean, they just delivered a knockout performance. I really don't know what to make of that. Nebraska just played well. Obviously, they played well against Iowa, but Iowa doesn't have a great offense.
Hey, and Ohio State's not what Ohio State usually is. I mean, they just lost
100%
team. So
And Michigan has a good defense, but Michigan was 6-5, and they shut down Ohio State. So when you look at this, so here, this is this is in the 6 losses plus the Wisconsin win. So here's the offenses in terms of their EPA rank offensively, expected points added, which, if you don't know what that is, you could go back to the podcast we did with Eric Hess, and he talks about EPA a lot. So Indiana is the 2nd ranked offensive team in terms of EPA. Now, like, I don't want to get into averages again, because people are like, oh, well, Nebraska, they're 19th total defense in the country, average. Okay. Well, but against a really bad offense, In Iowa, you only gave up 164 yards. So that's going to bring your average down. But against Indiana, you gave up 495. Against USC, who's the 13th ranked offense in terms of EPA, Nebraska gave up 441 yards. Against UCLA, who's 65th, they're actually lower than Iowa in expected points added. They gave up 358 yards. Wisconsin, 61st, they gave up 407 yards. And against Illinois, 381 yards. So the games that Nebraska won, they dominated. They dominated UTEP in terms of yardage. They dominated Purdue. They dominated Iowa. They lost that game, but the offensive output wasn't great for Iowa. So
Colorado's an outlier.
Colorado's an outlier. I think Colorado didn't meet the moment, but
there's a lot of other things going on with that game.
So when I look at not just the big picture, like I got to zoom in on specific games and specific situations. And so we're fooling ourselves if we think Nebraska will never have another defensive coordinator as good as Tony White. That's just simply not true. It's a fabrication at best. It's a lie at worst. We're fooling ourselves thinking Nebraska can't do that good. Nebraska's defense struggled against mobile quarterbacks. They struggled against teams that could throw the ball. Now, I know you're like, oh, well, John Butler. Well, okay, maybe. Nebraska's defense also struggled in key moments to stop the run. Right? UCLA, USC ran all over Nebraska. So I'm just not convinced that, all hope is lost because Tony White's moving on. More power to him. Go to Florida State, get paid, do your thing. I think Nebraska will be fine. I trust Rule, especially defensively, to make, a good hire. Yeah. I do.
Yeah. And like I think you said it in sort of tongue in cheek about, can't we just score 45 points on everybody and who cares about defense? Or, we talked about, let's stop being in 10-10 games and let's force the Iowas of the world to put up 30.
So let's go there. Let's go there. Dana Holgorsen is our offensive coordinator. Yep. Can we, I would prefer shootouts if it were up to me. You always have a chance if you can score.
Yeah. Yeah. And look across college football. That feels like that's what goes on. You look at these playoff teams and
it's the NFL.
The SEC, all of a sudden, there's no more 10-10 games in the SEC. Like they're all at 28-35, 42-35 finishes. So
it's like, I'm not talking about not having a competent defense.
Right.
That's not what this is about. You got to have a competent defense. But okay, let's pick on Iowa for a minute. It's pretty low hanging fruit. And I know people are like, oh, they have a consistent staff, great culture. Well, here's the thing, Iowa, you can't score points and your ceiling is always going to be 8 to 10 wins. I know you had 12 a few years back that you won. Okay. You had 1 year where you hit 12 wins. You can't score points. You're always going to lose 3, 4, 5 games every single year. But look at the teams that are going to be in the playoff. All 12 of them. What do? They score points.
Yep.
They're scoring every game. They're scoring 28, 35, 42 points every timeout. And I just think, man, if you can score points, you have a chance to win. You've got a chance.
Understatement of the year.
Yeah. I am tired. If we have another 13-10 game, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Because the Iowa game would have been put away in the second, third quarter had
100%.
A couple more passes for touchdowns, Yeah. They're not built to come back from down 14, down 20.
No, and that's the thing. It's like, okay, so if you have a defense that's struggling, your offense can still get you back in the game. I get that. But I don't think Matt Rule is going to settle. It's not like he's going to settle for a shoddy defense.
Mm-hmm.
He's still going to be a defensive football team, but that's where I'm like, we need to get out of the mentality that, yeah, you know what, this game is going to go down to the wire. It's going to be 10-10.
Yeah.
Like, nope, drop 40 on them.
So I think that's what makes this whole situation really unique in that, you know, half of us, you know, it's kind of this head and heart conflict here, but a lot of Husker Nation is panicking. A lot of us feel like, you know, I feel to a degree is Rule caught off guard by this. This can't be according to plan for him, you know, his 3rd year jump. I don't know if that's going to happen. I think the one thing that we have out there is we can feel good about is that offense. And I think at least if you trust a lot of the sources out there, there might be some big signees tomorrow on the offensive side. But
agree.
But yeah, so I'm just really conflicted in this. You know, part of me feels like the defense is completely falling apart. Who are we going to put on the field next year?
Who are we going to put on the field in the bowl game?
In the bowl game, yeah, I don't care about the bowl game anymore. But it's theater at this point. Like it's going to be interesting.
That's true.
But
so here I did a poll on Twitter just today. So if you're seeing this on Wednesday, Tuesday night, Wednesday, there's still time. Go to my Twitter page. I said, this week's Nebraska football happenings have made me wonder something. As a fan, which would you choose if you could only choose one? A team that can shoot it out against anyone, or a team that plays 13-10 slobber knockers every week? Do you have a guess on who's winning that poll? It's 187 votes. It's not massive, but it's a sizable sample.
The slobber knocker?
No, man, really? Almost 65%. 65% said, give me shootouts.
And you know,
and I do, but I think it's to your point. Like, this is the state of college football, like, and just football in general. I watched the Broncos-Browns last night, right? Like, Jameis Winston almost throws for 500 yards. I think the Broncos ended up winning 32-28 or something like that. Like, it wasn't a defensive game. I don't think it's ugly football. I don't think it's sloppy football. Yeah. I just think, you know, to win games, you have to score. To score, you have to move the ball. To move the ball, usually in today's world, you have to throw the ball. So I'm not sad that we hired full-time now.
Yeah.
Dana Holgorsen is the offensive coordinator. I really think with a full offseason, their offense could be special next year. I don't mean special like 95 Nebraska special. I just mean, I think they could average 30, 35 points a game.
Yeah, it's going to be a night and day difference. I think to that point, I'm going to play the devil's advocate fan here. We had that under Frost. We had that to a degree under Riley. And then we were clamoring for, we need to get back to, you know, physical Big Ten football, bloodbath practices, all that stuff. So it's just funny. We're fickle as fans where we had the scoring. We had no defense. And that's the key. It's got to be both. You have to have a competent defense, at least a good situational defense.
So I'll push back on your pushback. Is Scott Frost refused to be a CEO type head coach before it was too late.
That's the difference. Yeah.
Right. And I think Matt Rule sees that. He embraces the fact that you do not get to be a ball coach when you're the head football coach at the University of Nebraska. You are a figurehead. You are a representative. You are a commander in chief of sorts. You're a preacher. You're a visionary. You know, that's what he is. And I love that.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I think that's what Bob Stoops was. That's what Urban Meyer was. That's, I mean, to some extent, Nick Saban, he was kind of brash about it. Right. But, you know, he wasn't warm and fuzzy, you know, but that's what those guys were. And I'm not comparing Matt Rule to those guys in terms of his prowess or potential success, but, you know, the days of the Tom Osborns are gone where, you know, like Lincoln Riley, like has a shelf life in terms of you running the offense. Like, no, you need to be the visionary for your program and you need to let your coordinators do their thing and do it well. And I think, man, think about this. Matt Rule just hired a head coach as his offensive coordinator who was more successful than Matt Rule as a head coach.
Crazy. Yeah.
Like Dana Holgorsen's record is better than Matt is quite a bit better than Matt Rule's.
Yeah.
I love it.
Can't imagine seeing this, Scott Frost do that.
Right. So now imagine if, I don't think Matt Rule would hire Jim Leonhard. Maybe he would. Donovan Raiola and him were teammates at Wisconsin. So there's that connection. But Jim Leonhard was the interim head coach. Imagine having 3 guys on your staff who had been head coaches before.
Mm-hmm.
Like that would be incredible. So I think what Rule is doing is, I said this on Twitter and had some pushback, is I think this gives him a chance to kind of reinvent himself and reinvent what Nebraska football will be going forward.
Yeah. You have to. And I was thinking this too, I think there's kind of the common thought that coaches sort of get one chance at a change. Like you kind of get one coordinator change. So that's where I'm conflicted too, is like, okay, is this good or bad? Like I keep going in my head, like all these players leaving, is this good or bad? And I see some pieces that could be good foundational pieces. I see some that's like, yeah, good riddance. We need you gone.
Yep.
I don't know. Like, is this an indictment on Rule? Is this not? Maybe we shouldn't even be trying to figure that out. But that's where my head goes to this, because as a fan, a tired fan, tired of not winning, I don't like the idea of building. I don't want to, like, what's next year look like? What are realistic expectations?
It feels like it's going to be year 1.
Right. And that's really disheartening after going through what we just did, to say, I don't want to see 7-5 next year, 8-4. Like next year was supposed to be playoffs, so now talk to Dylan Raiola. I think he thinks playoffs next year, but
I think it was a good sign that Danny Kalin entered the transfer portal.
Yeah.
For those of us who appreciate and believe in Dylan Raiola.
Yeah.
I really like Danny. But I think there's more. I think it's more than just Dylan is going to be the starting quarterback. Here's my take. So I want to talk some transfers. So I'm going to start with Danny. I think hiring Dana, it showed quarterbacks like Danny, the writing's on the wall. This kind of system is not going to be conducive to your skill set. I think what you're going to see from Dylan is, there's a lot of jokes. He's overweight, all that kind of stuff. He wears extra padding, but I still think you're going to see a slimmed down version of Dylan in the spring.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see somebody who works on his mobility a ton this offseason, because you're going to see him run, I would say 2 to 4, maybe 5 zone reads a game where he, and probably 2 to 3 where he keeps the ball.
Yeah.
Because that's what Dana did. That's what, not at Texas Tech. Again, don't think Texas Tech. Don't think Oklahoma State. That was a long time ago. By the time he got to West Virginia, Houston, that's what they're running. They're running an air raid with RPO. And man, I know he's only got a 2-year contract, but if he's here when TJ Lateef gets here, like he'll have a blast with TJ Lateef.
Yeah.
Who's a dual threat. Pocket, quote unquote, pocket passer, but a dual threat quarterback who can run zone read and has some speed. So
or even
that's
Dayton,
or even Dayton, like that's the future.
Yeah.
And I think Danny realized that. And as maybe cumbersome or awkward as it looked, we even saw Dylan run some of it against Iowa. Like they put that in against Iowa, and he had a keeper for 7 or 8 yards on a first down. So you're going to see it. And I think Dylan is going to maybe reshape his mentality, even his body a little bit, to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because I firmly believe Nebraska needs a quarterback run threat to be successful in the Big Ten.
Or even the ability to get outside the pocket further and make the passes, because what did we see? We saw a lot of slow dropbacks as the pressure came in his face.
Yep.
But he didn't quickly turn and run and then turn and, obviously he models, it's no secret. Mahomes gets out outside the pocket and makes those throws. And Dylan we know he can make those throws, but he needs a little bit of that speed to get out of the pocket quicker, make that decision quicker, and create some space for himself. So, yeah.
Okay. So other transfers that maybe I mean, I know the answer because we texted today about it, but just that you were bummed about, maybe that you didn't see coming. I mean, I have a take. My take is, I'll wait. I'll wait. I want to hear from you. Go for it.
So yeah, my concern is guys like Prince Will, Jamari Butler, a 6-year senior. I don't have as much of it'd be nice to have the veteran leadership coming back, but he is an old player in the program, so to speak. So to me, it's losing guys like Williams and Prince Will and some of the other names you hear rumored. No, those aren't sure yet, but like you lose a Cam Lenhard, that would be a big hit in my mind. Probably Prince Will's the one that bothers me the most. Bayer was surprising because it's a starter. Williams is hard to take because we saw flashes from Williams. Yeah. But yeah, that's the head and heart thing where I think I know what you're going to say. And part of me is in that camp too, of just these guys did not win. It'd be different if this is a 10-win team that all of a sudden guys are just bolting. Yeah, that's my feeling. Other side of me, there's some anger. There's some like good riddance. You don't want to be here, leave mentality. Yeah, all over the map, I think.
Yeah, that's good. And I mean, my first thought to fans who are bummed or frustrated, or to like you who are like I get that and I feel it too. And here's why. Because one of the special things about being a fan of a team, especially a college team, is we get attached to these people because they're people, right? We love their stories because whether it's Husker Radio Network or Big Red Wrap Up or, one of the newspapers or news outlets, like they do stories on these guys and these gals. They interview them. We get to know, we hear about James Williams saying, like, I don't even know his story, but what I know is he was like, I lost my family. I want to know, what do you mean you lost your family? Like, sounds like there's a lot of trauma there. You read about, Bayer, who had a significant knee injury, right? And it took him a year or two to recover. And so we get attached to these people. And I think that's why we are so frustrated when they leave. Like Jamari Butler was such an emotional leader for this team. And he seemed to really love the University of Nebraska. And I bet he does. Yeah. So we get attached to them and we feel a connection.
It feels personal.
It feels personal, and we don't want to let them go because they're humans. And I think that's a really good thing. I think that's really cool that like we recognize deep down, whether we can articulate it or not, like you're a human and you play for my team and I don't want to lose you. Yeah. I don't want to let you go. Now, on the other side of that, when you want to win, when you're 6-6, every position needs an upgrade.
Yeah.
Or every position needs help. So you might say, well, does Nebraska need an upgrade at quarterback? Yes. I think Dylan is the upgrade, but he needs help. He needed a new offensive coordinator, and we got that for him.
Yep.
So does Nebraska need an upgrade at running back? Yeah, we switched the depth chart and we brought in a new offensive coordinator, and you saw a change within 3 weeks. You actually saw a change in Dylan too. He played better in those last 3 games. So yes, every position needs to be upgraded when you're 6-6. No one's safe. And as much as we love the human connection to those guys, at the end of the day, in a competitive business, like you shouldn't be too bummed out when guys leave who were on a 6-6 team. Because if we were looking at another program, we would say, well, you probably do need some new players. You lost 6 games. That's what we would say. We don't want a coach to drive people away.
Yeah.
Like we kind of gave Dion a hard time for. But Andrew, we also have to deal with the fact that we got 150 guys on this team and we got to get down to 105.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we had 7 announcements in the last 2 days?
Yeah, there could be 30 more.
There's going to be 30 to 40 more guys
who
announce they're entering the portal.
I just think the thing is the names we've heard aren't what you expected. And that's where I think for me, and I think a lot of fans, we want to know, was he told to leave? Did he want to leave?
And we'll never know.
What's his motive? Because it is personal. So I think it's like we want to make ourselves feel better by knowing or speculating on what led to their decision. I get it, like a James Williams who's super close to T. Knighton and probably White, and or maybe a lot of these guys, they had a team meeting yesterday morning. Rule had to have said, here's the direction we're going defensively. And maybe that doesn't fit a Prince Will Yellen or Mackay Bayer.
It's a great point.
Yeah, there's a lot. It'd be so fascinating to be in those meetings. And I look forward to hearing Rule talk. I don't think he'll say a whole lot tomorrow outside of recruiting and signing day. But yeah, it's really kind of a fascinating time.
Very, very fascinating. And yeah, like, again, I've said this before, like our privilege as fans is that we get to dream and we get to look ahead and we get to be emotionally wrapped up in things. Yeah. The other side of the coin is that we don't have the privilege of being in the room when they talk, and we don't know those conversations. We don't know the conversations between Rule and Tony White, between Matt Rule and Terrence Knighton, the coaches and, the James Williams and Jamari Butlers. We're not privy to that. That's not our right. And what I think, like now kind of getting outside of football, football proper, talking to fans is, please don't freak out. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Every program is going through this. Every program has to, if they didn't cut their rosters down a year or two ago, which we did not, now they're doing it. If they've already cut their roster down, they don't have to do this, but now it's our turn to go through that. Other schools have their coordinators leave, right? Like it happens.
Yeah. And on the flip side of it, like there's a chance we benefit from somebody else's pain, just like someone's going to benefit from our so-called pain. So whether it's a coach or transfer or a commit flip, like there's going to be guys next year that aren't here on the team that will be next year that we're going to feel the same way about, that if they left, we'd be upset and mad. So it'll all come back around. Yeah. That's the positive.
It will. I want to be positive. I don't want to be negative.
So the latest, did you see? So what are, I don't know, what are your sources, James, hearing? you have so many sources just crawling there in Lincoln. We all have really reliable sources.
Are you asking me specific? What's the latest on?
What are you hearing about T. Knighton? Because he posted a picture of himself on Instagram.
I think everybody's just freaking out. He did post something, and then I saw it on Twitter, not Instagram. Again, when you see like a James Williams leaving, you might think, well, that means Terrence Knighton is leaving because they were so close.
Yeah.
But that's not how life works. You kind of pointed it out. Maybe Matt Rule paints a vision of here's what we're doing on defense.
Yeah.
And James Williams is like, man, I'm 6'4" and I weigh 230 pounds. I'm not a traditional rush end.
Yeah.
I can't gain another 25 pounds this offseason. I'm transfer. I'm going to do something else. I don't know. I'm just making that up. I don't know. I think there's a lot that goes into it, but
yeah, because that's the thing. Tony White is the one that is in charge of what the defense looks like, not T. Knighton. So
exactly.
If guys are leaving, guys could easily be leaving because of Tony White, and
exactly.
we think it's Knighton, but Knighton's he's the D line. He's gonna adjust to whoever's calling the shots.
Yep.
So that really could be a factor.
I mean, again, he and Rule are close. They're not just close. Like, again, like I said earlier, Matt Rule's known Terrence Knighton since he was a teenager. So I would imagine they have very close, intimate conversation about their life and what's best for them. I do trust Matt Rule. Like when it comes to people, people like people have said, oh, you're loyal to a fault, with some people. Like, I know I've heard that about Matt Rule. The good side of that is he does care about that staff, every guy on that staff, and wants the best for them. I just talked to somebody yesterday, different industry, business person, trying to make some significant decisions about their business. And the person told me, I've been with some of these people for a couple decades, and I know their families, I know their pets. Like, it's like, and so it makes business harder. But the beauty of that is, like, I know these people. And so they trust me and I trust them. And I know that if they're leaving, it's not because they hate me or it's because they're trying to make the best decision for themselves. So I think if we can all remember that, it would just be so much easier. It's certainly with the players. Like, if a player wants to leave, like, that's fine. Yeah. I'm not again, we talked about this. I'm not leaving. We're not leaving. We don't get the choice. Could you imagine waking up one day as a fan and you're like, I'm not going to be a fan of Nebraska? Yeah. How does that even work?
It isn't a choice. Yep.
And that's why, Andrew, I think, players and fans have to have this, and coaches too. It's one of my frustrations with Bo was he looked down on the fans, and I'm like, we are the reason that you have a job. Mm-hmm. Like, if it weren't for us, there's no football, because nobody shows up and nobody essentially, pays for this.
Yep.
So you need to have this incredibly respectful relationship between fans and players and coaches. We are part of the program. So I hate when players are like, oh, you don't know, you never suited up. No, I've been here forever and I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
So don't tell. Yeah, I didn't suit up. I didn't play, but we are just as much a part of this program. I hate to give a shout out to Texas A&M, but their 12th man is a legit thing. They are part of the program. It's they're part of the team. So I want us to have that same mindset. I want our players and coaches to have that same mindset. I do think Matt Rule believes that.
Yeah.
And thinks that about the fans is, we're vital. We're vital to their success.
Yep. He knows that. So who's your pick for DC? I know Ryan Walters is pretty high up on your list.
Who
else you got?
I love former Colorado players. That's one that's puzzling to me because, last year he's like, I have the quote right in front of me. He said, I just remember them running out of the tunnel in Champaign, because he used to be the Illinois DC. Mm-hmm. And the feelings just come back, right? It's like, man, I really can't stand that color. Don't like that N on that helmet. First of all, how do you not like red? Like, right. How do you not like red? But, I saw some people on Twitter, on X, who were like, well, money changes things. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's some deep-seated hatred for people. And like I've said, like, so I work for a nonprofit, and nonprofits, you don't like really like compete like you do with, football, but there's competition. But I will say there are a few nonprofits out of principle here in Lincoln that I wouldn't work for. I wouldn't do it. It didn't matter how much money they offered me.
Yeah.
And so I think if Ryan Walters is a man of principle, he's probably never going to come to Nebraska.
Yeah.
Now, would I be thrilled if we just hired a coach who was fired, who was 1-11 and gave up 66 points in his last game? You got to be kidding me. No.
Yeah, don't give me he's a better coordinator than head coach thing. We don't need that.
There needs to be some time that he needs to get another job first and prove himself.
We all saw Purdue this year.
All right. Well, before we end our episode here, 45 minutes, we could probably keep going.
Oh, yeah.
I got to ask you about Nebraska basketball.
Okay.
We got a big game this week. We're playing at Michigan State. I don't know if you watched the game on Sunday. They scored 103 points. And, man, they look good. 2 nights after there, was it one night? I can't remember how many days in a row they played. couple nights after scoring 96, I guess it was when they played Wednesday before Thanksgiving and then Sunday, because I was at the Wednesday game. They scored 96 or 98, 99, something like that. And then they score 103. And they look good doing it. And anytime you score 103 points in a game, my goodness, you're doing something right. And they're playing good defense too.
Against the team that had a couple decent wins recently too.
Power 4 wins. Yeah.
Wins,
so I'm curious what your thoughts are in terms of, how they're going to do this week against Michigan State. I haven't watched Michigan State this year. I know they got to go to East Lansing to play, but man, it would be nice to get a Big Ten win on the road before Christmas.
Yeah, my thought is I think we have them in Indiana before Christmas, so split those would be ideal, or ideal win both. And Rule's kind of had a easy. Well, Indiana, he's got their number, I think.
Hoiberg, because you said Rule.
You're
good.
Rule does not have Indiana's number.
No, he doesn't.
Hoiberg, we're on the basketball. No, I think it's going to be a pretty entertaining game. I don't feel concerned that oh my gosh, it's Michigan State. Like, I think they've lost that luster a little bit, and we've clearly stepped it up in recent years against them. And
it looks like they lost. They beat North Carolina. They lost to Memphis, who's ranked 16th. They put it to Colorado. They beat Samford, beat Bowling Green. They lost to Kansas, who was number 1. Beat Niagara and Monmouth. So, I mean, they have some good losses.
Yeah. Hard to tell a whole lot from that, but
yeah.
Yeah.
So they're 7-2. I mean, I think it's going to be a tough game.
Yeah.
But I really like how Nebraska's offense is coming together.
Yeah. Yeah. Connor Season, and then, Bryce kind of playing this sort of the point, or, he's kind of the primary ball handler for the most part. Yeah. I mean, you gotta have everybody clicking, I think, in a game like that. Can't afford to have Juwan Gary have an off night, or
agree.
Yeah.
I like how they're moving the ball really well. And they attack the rim in the paint. That's just something they didn't do last year. They didn't really have that threat.
Yeah.
Rank played, out. He didn't always play under the hoop. You had Alec last year, but even, just the threat of Braxton Mia dunking.
Yeah.
Which is new for us. Andrew Morgan, I think, really kind of came into his own last game. There was a few games where I was like, I really wondered what his role on this team was, but
yeah,
I think he showed some things last game down low, especially, and he's a good free throw shooter.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as you mentioned, Connor and Bryce, like both of those guys are, gosh, if they could each go for 20 a night, my goodness, they won't keep up that pace, but. And then even Juwan, I feel like Juwan's been shooting the ball better.
Yeah. He's efficient, you wouldn't call him a shooter, but slasher or whatever. He gets to the rim and he puts it in the hoop. So it's really nice to see a competent center, like competent around the basket, because we've had so many big guys in recent years that just got awkward when they got the ball. They didn't know what to do with it or how to finish. And, he's not perfect, obviously, but yeah, he goes up strong, and we've been missing that, I think.
That's the thing. I'm here for all the dunks. And I know that, Mia's in the game to play defense. And I don't think he's actually the best defender in the world. I think he leaves his feet a little too quickly sometimes. He's really big, stay on your feet, get tall, straight up and down. He doesn't do that every time, or as much as I'd like to see him do it. But yeah, I mean, when you got a guy who's 7'1" on the offensive end, and Bryce or Connor are driving the lane, the threat of the lob is always there. And so I think it was that Wednesday night game before Thanksgiving that I was at with my wife. I'm pretty sure he had 5 or 6 dunks, which you're right. Like we haven't always seen that with a center. Go up strong, dunk the ball. You don't lay it up. Dunk it. It was I remember when we were students, because I think, wasn't Alex March in our class?
Yep.
I'm like, dunk the ball. You're 7 feet tall or 6'11", dunk the ball. But he just that wasn't the kind of player he was.
Nope.
And man, I get excited. And then I've said this, I think in our last episode, just seeing Wooster and Ulyss drive to the lane. Like, I love it.
Yeah.
Get points in the paint.
What a job Hoiberg has done I saw the record, his stats, like his first 72 games and his last 72 games or something like that. Like,
oh, I didn't see that.
His win percentage in his first 72, something like that, of his career here was like 36%. His last 72, he's like 67%. Like, he's
awesome.
He's like just completely done a 180 in terms of winning. So good on him to figure it out. And I think he's got the right coaches, assistants on the bench, and you kind of feel it's nice to go into a game and feel like
you got a shot.
Yeah, like, you don't have to sit here and be like, oh, just keep it close. Like, feel really confident we're going to play pretty well. And
and that's the thing I think for us as fans to remember too, is like, it's hard to win on the road in the Big Ten, really hard to win at Michigan State. You want to play well, but I think they got one road win last year in conference, right, against Indiana, if I'm not mistaken. I don't expect them to be a Purdue and to, win, most of their games on the road. But man, if you could get 3, 4, 5 on the road, holy cow. Like, in my prediction, I think I had them something like 21-10 or something like that. I didn't anticipate a lot of road wins, but after seeing their offense, again, it's like football. It's like, if you can score, you have a shot.
Yeah. Yep.
But then it's not just they're scoring, but like, they still play good defense.
Yeah.
If you could play good defense and score, holy cow, you got a shot.
And to bring it back to football fans, like, look what Hoiberg did to salvage his career, to salvage Husker basketball, in terms of make some coaching changes fairly early on in his tenure. I guess it's just sort of a lesson on time and giving that runway to take off. And maybe, hopefully, we see the same thing out of Rule right now. Is he early enough in this tenure, he's made some changes, some drastic ones, and let's trust his process. So hopefully we're sitting here in 2 years and we're amazed at his record in one score wins.
I love that. And you think, man, yeah, Hoiberg was really successful at Iowa State. Rule, really successful at Temple and Baylor. Both go to their professional league and are failures.
Yeah.
And then they both come back to Nebraska, and has not started out well for Matt Rule.
Nope.
And man, it was pretty bad for Fred Hoiberg. I mean, there were people, there were media, there was fans, there was even me. And I think I texted you at one point, probably 2 years ago. It's like, I think I've seen enough.
Yep.
I've seen enough.
He took a pay cut. I mean, he had to take a pay cut. So, yeah.
I mean, it got to I think it was the 2022-23 season where we were like, this, we cannot keep doing this.
Right.
And what did he do? He retooled everything. And last year, man, it clicked. So I love that analogy. I do hope Matt Rule's on a similar path. So, all right. Okay. Well, hour in, a lot going on this week. We probably could go for another hour.
Yeah. We may need to get on more of these. We may need to react to signing day.
There's going to be more news.
A defensive coordinator hire. Yeah.
There is going to be more news this week, and maybe we will talk about it. So, but we'll finish it up for now. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Appreciate it. Again, subscribe, like, share, comment. Let us know your thoughts on who Nebraska's defensive coordinator could be. And if you like the Dana Holgorsen hire, give us a like and tell us what you're excited about. Well, we'll see you next time. Go Big Red as always. Andrew, hope you have a great night.
You too.
And Go Big Red against Michigan State, 11 a.m. Saturday. Don't miss it. Nebraska basketball is going to keep us anchored
Yes.
through the turbulent times. All right. We'll see you next time, everybody. Take care.